Good evening, and welcome to The List, a little series I'd like to put together focusing on the list that I'm going to be running for battle reports, stuff that I might be getting ready for tournaments, and just general all around army preparation and what's going into it for me, building some of these armies and rosters, and maybe hopefully give some advice out there that can help you bring a little more of a competitive edge on to your table. Tonight, I'm going to be focusing on the Necrons, an army that I've played for pretty much the duration of this edition. I've always had liked them. I just felt in previous editions their model line were rather lacking. And going into this edition, we got a lot more with the introduction of Scorpax, the Scorpack Lords, and of course the big guy, the Silent King. So, with that being said, start to move into my 2,000 points Necron list, which is a custom dynasty. It is Relentless Expansionist and Eternal Conquerors, which allow me to make a pre-game move of up to 6 inches for any unit. This can take me out of the deployment zones in most missions, and also gives every unit in my army the objective secured rule. This is a pretty common Necron dynasty, especially with the power of the Necron secondaries. Secondaries I like to focus on are Ancient Machineries, Purge the Vermin, and Code of Combat. I know a lot of people have been off the Code of Combat after Silent King and the Catacombs lost core. Vehicles with the character keyword no longer have the core keyword. But I still have a lot of faith behind them. I still see the damage they can put out, and having them as cleanup units, I still have some faith in them at this time. Going to see how it works, going to push forward and get a couple games and see if they still work the way I like them to. And with that being said, we'll segue right over into my 2 Catacomb barges. I have one equipped with the Voidcythe to try to get around some of the pesky phase capping units, and the other one with the Voltaic staff, which I enjoyed a lot more when I had the core re-rolls and being able to re-roll and have the Voltaic staff pop off for additional hits. Any 6s to hit with that weapon generate 2 additional hits, and it starts with 4 shots as it is. Both come with a Gauss blaster for a little bit of extra range. Strength 6, AP 3, D3 damage, 3 shots each at 36. And they are characters with under 10 wounds, 9 wounds and less. So they are able to look out, sir, and be protected. Generally, I've still liked them. I like the bodies, what they give me, the amount of spacing. They're large enough that they cover a good space in the board, but they're small enough that they can get behind some terrain and get into spots that some other larger vehicles might not be able to. Flying can get them to be able to charge and shoot at targets that they wouldn't normally be able to see. And in general, it's mostly for Code of Combat here. Every unit that I kill, Code of Combat functions that every unit that I kill in the shooting phase is worth 2 points. If I kill a unit in close combat, I get 3 points with Nobles. This is why the Catacombs are key, because they have the Noble keyword. So does the Silent King. And if I kill a character in close combat with a Noble, I get 3 points, as well as I generate a command point. So those are my Catacombs. Moving on, I have 2 units of Scorpax, a 5 and a 6. I cannot say enough good things about these guys. If you do not have Scorpax in your army or do not own them, you really should. They are a great investment. They're fast with their 8-inch move. They are infantry, so they're going right through breachable terrain, being able to hide behind walls. Typically, that's how I like to use them. I hide them behind a wall, keeping that 8-inch threat plus their charge, and be able to have a good area protection. They really help me a lot in Purge the Vermin, where Purge the Vermin states for each table quarter that a enemy unit is not wholly within, I score 1 point. And then if there is none in my deployment zone, I score an additional point. Scorpex do really well for this to be able to guard that center field. If you could draw a line down the center field and keep your opponent out and hold your half of the table edge for the entire game, 5 turns, 3 points a turn, there's 15 points on that secondary, very easy. And this is why a lot of people have come to terms with the fact that Necron secondaries are very easy to score with all these different obsecking units and everything like that. Moving on is one of my favorite units in the Necron Codex, something that's been in every single list of mine, Canoptek Scarabs. I am running 2 8-man Scarab squads. This gets a little tricky. Not running the 9s because I tried to lower down my no prisoner points. You're basically giving up 15 on no prisoner. It's almost impossible to get around it with stuff being resurrected and all these different units, that all the different models, the wound counts on the Scarab and everything like that. It's really almost impossible to not give up max points on that. But dropping these guys down to 8 brings me roughly around 127 on my wound count. So I'm saying there's a chance. I like to piggyback these two off of each other with my Spyder. One squad gets shot, put a Scarab back off the Spyder, bounce the other one, and kind of just move back and forth with it. Moving on to 3 units that are both 3-mans, Canoptek Wraiths, Ophidian Destroyers, and the Tomb Blades. All of which I take in 3-mans. All are fast units. I'm kind of playing off the fact that they're objective secured, so I can just barely move one onto a point, touching it, and score the points. These units are really good for ancient machineries, as well as being able to just take away a secondary from someone with the fast obsec. The Ophidians can leave the table for 1 CP and go into reserve and come back anywhere 9 inches away from the enemy. Tomb Blades have a 14-inch move. So if you measure that and consider your 6-inch pregame move, you put an objective that's about 20 inches away, and you can tag that objective at any point, which again, these guys do great for ancient machineries as well as Treasure of Aeons. Ancient Machineries is one that is a secondary that requires you to tag objectives and complete an action on them outside of your deployment zone. Now, what's nice about the Tomb Blades is those can usually tag one of the objectives that are in front of your opponent. I usually go into Ancient Machineries when there's 4 objectives in no man's land, meaning not in a deployment zone, so that I at least can score like 9 points off it for getting 3, 12 points off it for getting 4, and then if I can get into my opponent's home deployment zone, which is a legal target, that's where I can get my 15 off of that. Treasure of Aeons, you're always trying to hold that extra objective to get those points, and the Tomb Blades, the Ophidians, and the Wraiths do an excellent job of it being able to be fast, small units that can just barely touch the objective and score those additional points. Treasure of Aeons, while I'm talking about it, is dealing with the objective markers in no man's land. Your opponent's going to select 3 of them. I try and do it on one that's only has 3 objectives in the middle, so it's just those 3. And when we go back to Purge the Vermin and trying to just draw that line down center, 1 objective in the middle, 1 objective on my side, and then a 3rd objective that's in my deployment zone. Well, holding the 2 that are outside of my deployment zone that still don't pass halfway, that scores 3 points a turn. So Purge the Vermin and Treasure of Aeons really sit well together, that you're trying to complete both of those, and by literally sitting and doing nothing, you can score 15 on both of those relatively easily. That's a very easy 30 points on a secondary that a lot of armies are scraping at the bits to try and find something like that. Wraiths are tough, Wraiths are fast, Wraiths are cool, 4-up invuln, and they access to a strat that both them and the Scarabs and any Canoptek unit share for 1 CP to be able to heroic can really allow them to kind of threaten units that want to do what we're trying to do with the Necrons, which is just tag an objective. Well, they try and tag it, but they're within 3 of you, spend the 1 CP heroic. Not only are you bringing more models on in the case of the Canoptek Scarabs, but now you're bringing a more threatening unit on with the Wraiths and could possibly stop them and be able to get your 12 on primary for a 2nd, 3rd turn as well. Moving forward, one of my toys, and this is a toy, is the 2 Annihilation Barges. Annihilation Barges, they have a Gauss Blaster, 3 shots, strength 6, neg 3, d3 damage, 36-inch range. Decent, does the work it needs to. But the big reason I like these guys is 12-inch move, fly, core, and they come with a 10-shot Strength 7 AP 0 negative or 1 damage weapon that every 6 to hit is 2 additional hits. Because these guys are core near the Silent King, they have full rerolls to hit, which means I can pick up and fish for 6s. I can pick up anything that isn't a 6 and try again and try and get a 6 and try and double my output on them. I think these guys get to be able to be made function by a 1 CP strat, Solar Flare, where 1 CP, you select an enemy unit anywhere on the board. That unit does not receive any benefits of cover. So in this Armor of Contempt era where everyone's like, oh, well, AP, it's 0, it hurts, it's such garbage, it's this, that, and the other. By being able to knock away the cover, you may not be able to knock away the Armor of Contempt. That's fine. Marines, 3-up saves, regular, volume, weight of fire. I see these guys able to bring stuff down. Strength 7 is solid to just be able to put 3s to wound on most targets that you want to clear them with. On top of it, they also have Transhuman, something that Catacomb Command Barges have as well with their shielding, that allows them to not be wounded on anything better than aims. I have loved running these guys into an assault base unit and just letting them soak up the charges, let them soak up the Overwatch, and just sit there and just be a silly, bulky unit that can tie down something, prevent a charge, block a lane. Moving in, again, the same thing with, like I said, with the Catacombs, these guys' size lets them fit into spots that other vehicles couldn't and can block lanes that your opponent are trying to get down to get to the heart of your army, to get to the Scorpex, to get in your deployment zone, to cross that center field and start denying you points. These guys can just block it, and at 125 points apiece, I don't think it's that expensive considering some of the costs of other things in the army. Next is a conversion of mine. I use him he can be a Technomancer, he can be a Chronomancer. He's a Cryptech. They bring back units in basically everything. They're healing and everything from Scorpex to not the Canoptek Scarabs yet. The only thing that doesn't have core right now is the Scarabs. With my loadout, I have him with a Veil of Darkness and a Canoptek Cloak. So he's got a 10-inch move to keep up with some of these faster units, and then a Veil to pick up a unit like Scorpex and drop them down onto an objective in someone's corner. Get myself out of an area if I've over-dedicated into a corner and now my opponent is built a flank on the other side. I can get up and get out of that area. Next up, I got 5 Immortals. There's not really much to say about them. They have Gauss blasters, a rapid fire, strength 5, neg 2, 1 damage. These guys are the tax. They're the cheapest troop choice unit that I need to take to have a patrol. They're just filling out the patrol. Mostly they sit in the backfield. They're on 32 millimeter bases. There's a 5-man, so it's good to draw a line and block out some deep strike. But for the most part, they're just hanging out. T5, 3-up save. They're the tax for this army, and a very cheap tax. Moving forward, I have my Canoptek Spider, who hides behind a wall and puts Scarabs back. I also gave him a Gloom Prism to allow him to give me a second to the Witch in the army. In situations with characters and stuff like that, it can be very, very, very valuable. And last but not least, the Silent King. Silent King recently just lost core, which affects him tremendously. Having his rocks, his manures, has been so valuable. It really allows for great CP resource usement with not having to spend a CP to reroll to hits. They've been very, very, very reliable with him having core and being able to reroll hits himself. That going down, they're still one of the best long-range weapons in the army. Just flat 6 damage is huge. He's still really mean in combat. He's still great for code of combat. His volume of shots that he sends out there and is able to take units, little ending units, 3 guys left in a Marine squad, a couple lone stragglers on a point. he can pick those off and turn those into points for you, and reliably with his higher weapon skill and just the sheer volume of attacks. His profile is massive, and I'm not going to go over all of that, but he basically comes across with 12 shots just by himself, plus the 2 annihilation beams. And then in combat, he has 4 attacks, 3 attacks, and 6 attacks on different profiles with the guys on his throne as well as himself. So he's still a very, very damaging piece, especially for his cost. And he gives you CP back, which with us being CP starved right now in this edition of the game, with us not having as much to start off with, he's just super valuable. He allows you to tap into being able to take an Outrider Detachment or any of these other sub-detachments to really dig deep into these fast units that you get out of these fast attack spots to be able to play this strategy of board control and board coverage. One of the things that I always know going into most games with this list is there is a very high chance I'm going to get tabled because of having to push forward, and that's fine because a lot of these Necron secondaries, you can cap them out early. The Treasure of Aeons, if you can take all 3 of the center points, you're looking at 5 points. With Code of Combat, there's no cap on how many kill points you can get each turn, and with Purge the Vermin, if you go first and your opponent hasn't moved, you're looking at 4 points on turn 1 just because your opponent didn't go first. So some of that gives you a lot of benefits to really pushing forward that late in the game. When you don't have anything left, you can still win out just based on the fact of what you've done early in the game. And having some of these MSU units really, really helps. The Silent King is usually stalking around by the Scorpex, giving them the full rerolls to wound, and it really lets them eliminate basically any threat that I've run into with them. So that's basically my 2,000 points in a nutshell. I'm still going to be running it as is with, like I said, without taking the Catacombs out. I still have faith in them. Give them a couple tries. And if I end up making some changes, I'll make another video, post it up here so you can see what I'm working with and what I'm thinking about. Love to hear some feedback in the comments section. And if you haven't liked, shared, and subscribed, please do. Be getting a video posted up soon. I'm going to be taking on Lane again with his Votan and seeing how this Necron Undying Legion can hold up against them. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.